Thank you to the Sports Broadcasting Hall of Fame for the honor of electing me to this most prestigious organization. Could the Sports Broadcasting Hall of Fame have elected me for this honor because I have never been afraid to speak my mind? As an expert commentator, I have been called a loudmouth, Popeye on ice, a comfortable old chair, a dispenser of inane, insane brilliance, and my favorite, a combination of a pedagogic schoolmarm and a wildly enthusiastic fan. When I was told this was the first year with a category for expert commentators, I asked, "What took you so long and what are we, chopped liver?" Which may also be the reason I have taken to wearing iron underwear and a brass athletic cup. They will hopefully ward off the slings and arrows after some outspoken comments. The reason I got my first job at the 1960 Winter Olympics in Squaw Valley was that there was a vacuum. Skaters in those days were subject to the tightest amateur rules ever, and most needed to earn money. If they wanted to skate, the only opportunity was to skate in the ice capades or the ice follies. So many went to graduate school or got a real job and couldn't spend 3 weeks at the Winter Olympics. I lucked out because few knew what the fine art of figure skating was all about. While simultaneously, sports television was in the throes of growing pains. The fact that I lasted almost 3/4 of a century was not that I was stuck in a rut, but mostly because I followed one very simple rule: get the best folks around you. Now, I had nothing to do with choosing who they were and who was around us. It was just that they were very, very good. For those of you who know a little history of sports broadcasting, know the names of hosts who became legendary. Bud Palmer, Jim McKay, who taught me never to give up control of the microphone because you don't know if you'll ever get it back. Jack Whitaker, Chris Schenkel, Al Michaels, Mary Carrillo. She always made me laugh. Leslie Visser never knew what to do with her hair. Peggy Fleming gave her double earrings, a pair of earrings, and she attached them one to the other so they'd make a bigger impact. Howard Cosell, Terry Gannon, and then there were the producers, directors, and idea guys. Dick Ebersole, Barry Frank, Mike Pearl, who we just heard, and from Roone Arledge, who delighted in telling people he was once called Ruin Knowledge. Don Ohlmeyer, Dennis Lewin, Howard Katz, Joel Fell, Dennis Swanson, Pat Lowry, Chet Forty, and finally, television's biggest skating enthusiast of all, Doug Wilson, who has been such a supportive force. He has been such a supportive force in the skating world that skaters everywhere unanimously voted him into the United States Figure Skating Hall of Fame. It was a time during the 19th century when the most devastating loss of skaters in a plane crash on its way to the 1961 World Championships in Prague was front-page news, bringing figure skating to the world's attention. But out of this fiery crash, figure skating rose like a phoenix to prominence with a new group of outstanding stars. After that loss of the entire team in 1961, a heavy load was placed on the shoulders of one skinny little 12-year-old in the 1962 World Championships, Scott Ethan Allen. But he not only performed well there, he went on to win an Olympic medal. I was blessed with the opportunity to comment on the classical perfection of Oleg and Ludmila Protopopov, who won 2 Olympic medals and then defected from the Soviet Union. We all marveled at the shyness of Peggy Fleming in an unadorned chartreuse dress winning at Grenoble. And the doll-like but delectable Janet Lynn, who won the world's heart when she fell on a flying sit-spin in the Sapporo Olympics, but kept smiling despite the fall. And John Curry skating to Don Quixote with the most elegant positions, and Dorothy Hamill with her wedge-cut hairdo that changed every woman's sense of style. And there were the dancing skates of Robin Cousins, and I lucked out that personalities like Katarina Witt, Debbie Thomas, ice dancers Judy Blumberg and Michael Siebert kept the television audience enthralled. Drama was always present. The Battle of the Carmens, the Battle of the Bryans at Calgary in 1980, and even the drama in the 1990s of Tonya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan all did their part to keep the audience mesmerized. I had nothing to do with all this because I did have the good fortune, but I did have the good fortune of being at the right place at the right time and having the greatest pleasure of seeing it all up close and personal. Maybe I talked too much, maybe too little, but it was heaven for me, and I loved every minute of it. Now, of course, it was not always fun. The plane crashed in 1961. At the 1980 Winter Olympics in Lake Placid, one of skating's most classic confrontations was about to take place. It was at the height of the Cold War between America and the Soviet Union. In the pair competition, two totally different styles of skating were being compared. Russia's dynamic, athletic, powerhouse pair, Irina Rodnina and Alexander Zaitsev, and the lyrical, softer, sensitive movements of the Americans, Ty Babylonia and Randy Gardner. And due to his injury, we were deprived of that moment, but other moments more than made up for it. A friend in the theater, who was in the theater, always said, there is always something just around the corner in the theater. And Jim McKay always said, in figure skating, something is always happening. At the 2002 Salt Lake Winter Olympics, a judging scandal erupted that caused the Olympic Committee to have one hell of a tizzy. And now the perpetrator of that scandal is running for the presidency of the International Skating Union, which is the governing body of skating. And if he's elected, it will cause another, but this time another negative explosion of news. The fine art of figure skating changed dramatically during this past century. Professional competitions became popular. I was proudest of the World Professional Championships, which became known simply as Landover, much like Wimbledon became the moniker for the All-English Lawn Tennis Championship. There were fabulous performances like the Bolero of Jane Torble and Christopher Dean in the 1984 Sarajevo Olympics. I don't know if any of you remember that performance, but it mesmerized not just skaters, but also office workers, policemen, laborers, and lawyers who all talked about its impact the next morning at the water cooler. Yet despite its being the most iconic program ever, the Rules Committee insisted on changing the rules governing ice dance. And if Torval and Dean had done exactly the same program that they did at Sarajevo at the next Olympics, they would have come in last. Go figure. This sport has never been a sane sport, but it certainly is interesting. And there was also Brian Boitano skating on a glacier where one could feel the cold and warmth of the Arctic, and there was a never-ending expanse of black ice. And the skaters changed too. Hamill learned from the stylistic perfection of John Curry and became not only an Olympic gold medalist, but one of the finest skater of edges ever. And Scott Hamilton, unhampered by the rules of competition, became an entertaining performer with extraordinary character. Sometimes it was not always the best of times. And when I got down and depressed, another theater friend who sensed the depression would call me on my cell. And he would sing, "Nothing's impossible, I have found. When your chin is on the ground, just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start all over again." Figure skating is the only sport where athletes have not only Olympic competition, which, as everyone knows, needs extraordinary technique, but the athletes also need a feeling for the impact of make it or break it choices of music. They need an understanding of the spacing of choreography, and they must know the difference between haute couture and low-class couture. When overdone splatter is dashed on too many costumes, making them look like rejects from the Metropolitan Opera costume department. But most important, skaters need a sense of performance, and without it, they will never rise to the heights possible. It has been a wild, exciting, absorbing, learning, demanding, and fabulous ride. Thank you, Sports Broadcasting, for the opportunity of being a part of it, and thank you for this great honor.